I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, members present this evening are myself, Mayor Marl, Council Members Burgoyne, Gearbaugh, Seibel Koenig, Rhodes, Roth, and Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. From City staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, City Treasurer Bennett, Police Chief Rennick, Technology Support Coordinator Schonk, and Parks and Rec Director Scruggs. For the rest of you in the audience this evening, if you'd please sign in the back, we would appreciate that. At this time, I would seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
Move to approve as submitted.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes, and that's seconded by Councilmember Roth. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We have no absences this evening, so we'll dispense with that. We move on to our one and only presentation of the evening, which is the Saline Main Street Quarterly Report. I believe we have our Main Street Manager, Bob Rosenberger, as well as our Board Chair, Cindy Zhubko, here. We invite you to speak, or present rather, Bob, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure to stand in front of the council and share with you one of my favorite topics, Saline Main Street. You know that we have 4 teams, so we'll go through the different teams and try to make this as quick and painless as possible. The design team, you have a handout that I believe Ms. Royal passed out. So.
Is it this one here, Bob?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So just a quick team update for the design team. B. Blumen has come to a close. We did have some problems with the baskets that were causing some of the plants to die. They were replaced by Nature's Gardens, so we thank them for that. We also thank them for doing the watering. That really saved us some money and also kept the plants beautiful and the downtown beautiful. So we're appreciative of that. Councilman Roth helped us with our architectural scavenger hunt. It's an incredibly neat idea, but it didn't do real well. So we've reevaluated it, and we're going to come back with an abbreviated, easier to do, and better publicized scavenger hunt. The banners that the students did were hung downtown again. We got a lot of great publicity from that, and people, lots of nice remarks. People like that kind of stuff, so we're planning to do that again probably next year. And we've been working with the city on Merchant Park, so hopefully that will be moving along and moving forward. The BES team, or Business and Economic Success team, we did have a new business open, and this is, by the way, for July, August, and September, that quarter. We did have a new business open in that quarter, Kerrigan Cafe. They added 1 full-time job and 10 part-time jobs, which is great because it replaced my favorite cafe, which had 1 full-time job and 2 very part-time jobs, so we're adding employees downtown. We're working on crowdfunding along with the Chamber of Commerce. November 11th at 7 o'clock, the 2nd floor at Mangiamo. Yeah, it says 6:30, sorry, typo.
That's good, you caught it. Thank you.
7 o'clock. 2nd floor of Mangiamo's, November 11th. It's 7 p.m., by the way. It's we're going to have some speakers from the Michigan Municipal League and perhaps someone who actually did some crowdfunding to fund their business in Ypsilanti. So that's exciting. And we are working with the city and on the Michigan Avenue makeover. We brought Christy Trevorrow and James Vitrano from Rochester to speak with our downtown business owners, and they shared what they went through a couple of years ago when they did their Main Street makeover, and I think it was really a great presentation and well received, lots of great ideas. Always good to learn from people who've been through something like we're going to go through in 2016. The next report is from the promotions team. Oktoberfest was a huge success. We did project that we would make a profit of $500. We did a little better than that, as you'll see in the first box there. We did work with the school, the Saline area schools, for the first ever downtown pep rally. And rumor has it that Mr. Graydon is thinking of doing it again. So we're excited about that. Dr. Rob Bohr worked with us to put on a scarecrow contest. It was much bigger than anything we've done before, more than double. Each year, we had 4 categories, the individual, the group, small business, large business. We had winners in all of those, and we had 24 scarecrows downtown, so that was pretty cool. And Winterfest is going to be a very different event in 2015. Heretofore, we've pretty much had stuff downtown, but also at Henny Field. Lots of outdoor activities, not much indoor. This coming year, we're going to have a lot more indoor, but we'll also have some outdoor. Dave Eberline is heading it. He's really creative with his ideas, and I think you'll like what we're going to do. We're going to have outdoor euchre, indoor euchre, board games. We got tons of businesses that are cooperating and participating, and they will have things going on in their business. It's a threefold Oktoberfest in that before we're going to have pictures in the windows of business owners, and when they were children, you'll also have a sheet that shows what they look like today, and you try to match them up. Gets people downtown looking at our business. It's also kind of fun. We also have obviously during the day of Winterfest, there'll be lots of activities, both indoors and outdoors. And then afterwards, people who purchase Winterfest buttons will have the opportunity throughout the month of February to go into the different businesses and get discounts or specials. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And the buttons will only be $5. And then for our organization team, the total number of volunteer hours for July, August, and September were 1,483, which has a value at $22 an hour, which is the national average of $32,626, which I think is great. That comes to the city in terms of volunteer hours, so that's always exciting. We did raise $26,267 in funds. We're looking at an award card program as incentives for residents and businesses to invest and to volunteer. We do an annual report, and following that annual report, which goes to both the Michigan Main Street and the National Main Street programs, they come and visit us and every year, and we go through an accreditation. And even though the accreditation took place in October, and that falls outside the parameters of this report, I would like to report that we were accredited once again this year. So I'm proud of our team, lots of great people, lots of great volunteers, and they make that happen. We're always looking at diverse ways to fund our program, and I wanted to let you know that we continue to meet monthly with the downtown business and property owners, and the Chamber and the city both have an opportunity at that time to make reports, so that monthly we keep the downtown business and property owners apprised of what's happening in Saline. I also included 2 pages that came from reports from Michigan Main Street, and I just wanted to show you real quickly on the last page, the one it's 2013 and 2014. It says at the top, this is for our designation year is 2011. That's when we became a Main Street program, or when we started. But I wanted to draw your attention to the total investment program to date. That's, as of last year, $803,000 total investment in our downtown. So that's exciting stuff. Lots of good things happening in Saline. And also the volunteer hours for those 2 years are 13,423. And at that figure that we talked about before of $22 an hour, that's almost $300,000 worth of volunteer hours coming to the city of Saline. So lots of fun stuff happening at Saline Main Street. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for our Main Street Director? Mr. Burgoyne.
In terms of Christmas lighting, what will happen this year and next year in terms of individual businesses, in terms of what the chamber's doing? The holiday lighting period has always been something positive for the entire community. So I'm just wondering how that will change over the next couple of years with the anticipation of Michigan Avenue being redone and so forth, and some hesitation. But are individual businesses going to light up, or what's going to happen?
That's a great question. That's a chamber project, and I know that Art and Terry and the chamber have been working on that. Is Art here? Oh, Larry.
No, Larry is here. Mr. Osterling?
Yeah.
I might be able to speak to that. Can we do that now?
Yeah, I'd be more.
I don't have any objections. There's no
Okay,
objections
it'll
from
be
the
quick.
dais. Yeah.
I appreciate the fact I'm not objectionable.
Let's vote on
How nice it is to see everyone again. Especially since I can sleep in tomorrow morning. That's a joke, see. Anyway, I have a letter here from Art, which I think all of you have seen, and to address your question, Lee, because Art's out of town. Yes, it's true, we're not going to, although we bought the lights, and there is funding for that in the future, we are refraining from adding any more lights to the downtown area next to Michigan Avenue because the trees are coming down. Kind of sad in a way. That tree next to Dan's alone, I think, is about an $1,800 tree. And depending on the size of the tree, it's been a sizable adventure. But in the future, we're not going to add any more because all that goes away. What we've decided to do instead, and I've had a conversation with Art, was that for the lights we currently have, we want to wrap those around the light poles downtown for the next couple of years. That makes it salvageable for us then in the future when the new trees get planted. It's something, it's not quite the effect that you have with the lights in the trees. And it's a project I started when I ran the chamber, and it's a project I'm fairly proud of. I brought some pictures, which I'm going to leave, and you can share, but I think you've seen in all kinds of cities, not just in Michigan, but all over the country, that this lighting project, this lighting your downtown, creates an attractability. It brings commerce. It brings people downtown. They feel comfortable.
Anything remaining on North and South Ann Arbor?
In total, those lights, and I'm talking from memory, but it's about 100 trees. So the main big ones are right along Michigan Avenue. But yes, what's salvageable is next to Brecken Grill, down the street, as far as Stone Arch, I believe, and on the other side. So we're maintaining, I mean, in number of trees-wise, we're maintaining probably about 60%. But the big ones,
Oh, all right.
the presentation,
Okay.
you know, the main street, the Michigan Avenue is really where the sizable investment has happened with dollars.
Currently at the four corners, there are 8 large trees that have lights, and they will remain lit.
Okay.
So that'll have a good impact right at the four corners.
Yeah, I haven't
Yes.
seen a plan as to which trees
That's-
they're
it's-
taking
they're
down,
at
but,
the main-
yeah, it's,
Okay.
Until the redo.
Okay.
and it's kind of interesting, I think you've noticed, I see Milan has started a tree lighting project now too, and some of our neighbors, and a lot of the cities run off when they hear about what the cost is, what the investment is, but you can sure tell a professional job. And then we've had that presentation in the past, and we look forward to having it again. It's just, we're kind of on hold at the moment because of what you mentioned, Lee. We just, hopefully those trees will last 3-4 years once they're lit professionally. But with the,
So the bottom line is that the lighting is not completely going away.
no,
So you're going to have somewhat less, and you're going to have the poles wrapped, but some of the trees will remain lit.
and actually the pole wrapping is something we're looking to get approved tonight. It's kind of a, yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Mr. Gearbaugh, please.
Just real quick, so we don't have to take it off the consent agenda. So this will be interspersed with our regular holiday decorations that hang on the poles?
Yeah, those are actually owned by the city.
Okay. I didn't know how you're going to do it, if you're going to eliminate
They-
one over the other.
I really don't know the answer to that. I don't think DPW's never been involved in the tree lighting project. So we'll have to, be a cost hiring for that. And there is a small cost for electricity. We actually have offered to pay for electricity in the past, but we never could figure out how much they use. It isn't a lot. But it's not, the lighting is something that's good for commerce, it's good for our town. I don't think you can make a case for it rising as an essential service. But on the other hand, when you look at the merchants and the Main Street Group and everybody else downtown that's had it, once you see it, it does create a good presentation to your downtown.
Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to that, the question, Mr. Gearbock, DPW will plan to put up the wreaths like we did last year. You may recall last year we did not put up the garland
Oh,
just because of
okay.
the age, and it needs to be needs to be replaced, as do the wreaths. But I believe we may not light those wreaths up again because of the age of the lighting. But as far as the wreaths go themselves, we can still salvage those and hang those up, and they look pretty decent. But yeah, they will coincide with if the potential for the wrapping of the light poles.
That's fine. I just want to know how you guys were going to coordinate. That's
Yeah,
just-
I don't know how those ever got paid for, or how they're a city project. But the lighting is pretty much, the chamber has pulled the rope on this because there's a lot of funding that needs to happen that isn't taxpayer related. So,
Thanks.
am I set?
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Bob, we'll bring you back up for just a moment. Are there any questions for Mr. Rosenberger regarding his quarterly report? No? Very good.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work of all your committee members, team members, and volunteers. Okay, my friends, we move on now to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested, but not required, to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? There are no citizen comments, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by, I'll let Mr. Burgoyne be the second on that. We'll get you next time, Ms. Cybo-Koenig. It's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Burgoyne to approve the consent agenda as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to public hearing. And I should note this evening, colleagues, anytime you see the name Rubel or Fordyce adjacent to an agenda item, neither one of those gentlemen are here this evening, so Mr. Campbell will be the lead staff member on those particular agenda items, which is the case in this one. So again, we are at public hearing, special land use request for Salt Springs Brewery. The first motion, it's a series of 4, will be to acknowledge receipt of the October 29th memo from Assistant Clerk Connie DeHaan.
Move to acknowledge receipt.
Thank you, Ms. Tahar. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Councilmember Roth. Any questions or comments? No, it's been properly moved and seconded to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. At this time, I would seek a motion to open the public hearing at 7:47. Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Gearbaugh. Moved by Mr. Gearbaugh, seconded by Mr. Burgoyne. All those in favor of opening the public hearing at 7:47 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The public hearing is now open. Anyone who wishes to speak on this agenda item is asked to come forward to the podium, and your comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Move to close.
Been moved by Gearbaugh to close the
Second.
public hearing at 7:47.
Second.
You want to second that, Mr. Burgoyne? Okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. The final motion is a motion to approve or not to approve the special land use request to allow a 75-seat outdoor beer garden-style dining area as regulated by zoning code 4A.04.1, sections 6.09 and 9.05, subject to the following conditions. 1, the site improvements and outdoor dining use shall be in accordance with the site plan amendment and its conditions of approval.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Cybo-Koenig. Any comments? We do have Ron Schofield, one of the proprietors of the business here. Mr. Roth?
I was just wondering if there's any noise concerns for the residents in the area.
You want to address that? I think I asked that exact question at the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ron Schofield. I'm one of the managing partners for the brewery. And we did discuss that at the last meeting. And basically, it comes down to common sense, good stewardship of the outdoor activities, monitoring the space outside, and dealing with any noise concerns that might come from the neighbors. So basically, we don't look to have any problems, and anything that would arise, we would look to take care of, before it became a problem. So I'm sure that there'll be some bumps in the road as we get open and get moving along and such, but no, the intention is to keep a close eye on things and keep it in check.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
Not a question, but a comment, and that is that I'm very pleased to see the brewery come to our downtown location. I think it will do a lot to increase the energy level and the vitality of our downtown. We'll bring more folks down there on a regular basis, some who perhaps never come to our downtown. And so I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gearbaugh?
And from the Planning Commission's perspective, we appreciate what you're putting into the building, and even from the Historic Districts Commission, the attention that's going to be paid to keep the building as an asset of what it is currently, and that you are working forward and really investing the right way into this building so that it will continue to be a good building downtown in a perfect environment.
We're doing our best.
And we appreciate that.
Anything else? Well, I would just echo the comments that were made by Councilmember Rhodes and Gearbaugh. This is a very exciting development for our downtown, and it's been a pleasure working with Ron and Ed and Mark, his two business partners. And I want to comment very briefly to the question that Mr. Roth articulated. I think every time I've met with these three gentlemen, they have articulated, and they're very cognizant of the fact that they have a number of neighbors, both commercial and residential, and that they're very interested in being good neighbors and cooperating and being a good addition to this very strategic area of our community. So I suspect that, of course, there are always hiccups and bumps in the road, but I don't expect any major problems on that front. I think they're going to be a great corporate citizen, and we look forward to working with them for many, many years to come.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Cybo Koenig to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Ron, thank you. Have a good evening. We move on to new business item 14-221. This is website updates. This is a series of two motions. The first of which will be to acknowledge receipt of the November 4th, 2014 memo from Technology Support Coordinator Schonk and to approve or not to approve the front page website updates by Design Hub in an amount not to exceed $2,585.
Move to acknowledge receipt and to approve.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Burgoyne. Mr. Schonk, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'll let the projector get set up here.
Go ahead, just sit there. You're fine.
That's too small. Try to blow it up. Okay, so in front of you tonight is a proposal for two upgrades to the city website. These are pretty major updates, so I thought it'd be good to kind of go over the changes and things we're looking to do to the design. The first one is the design to the front page. The site launched in its current form, as you can see here, in late 2009. It's been very functional since. We made some minor changes here and there, tweaks to the design, but for the most part, it's pretty much intact of how the original site launched. And since then, since 2009 to 2014, the web has become a vastly different place. Social media has taken off, mobile has taken off, and the current site doesn't really accommodate those very well. The images at the top, while they rotate, that is a Flash-based, Adobe Flash-based image that changes, which is not very mobile friendly. In fact, most mobile carriers don't even support it anymore. So any mobile device that hits the city website, it doesn't move. It's just a static image, which isn't very useful. So, one of the changes would be to make that more user friendly on the mobile side. The other thing too, down below here in the bottom left, we used a lot of screen space for social media because again in 2009 when it launched, people weren't necessarily sure, what the little blue and white F meant, Facebook, what Twitter was, those kind of things. So in the new update, which is right here, kind of going with some user feedback, some of the bigger changes. Let me zoom in some more here. Ooh, a little too much. There we go. So up at the top, the new title image is a little bit smaller vertically than the last images were. The other thing too, they scroll horizontally, which is kind of new style for web design. It's also mobile friendly, so this is HTML5, which is the new standard for web coding, which is supported across many devices, mobile phones, tablets, desktops, pretty much any device that can hit the internet, it'll support it. The other thing too, the social media section now has been moved. So before it was taking up a lot of space down the bottom left. We've since moved that up top because people are pretty familiar with what the blue F is and everything. So that's all kind of taking up a little bit less space right at the top of the site. The other thing too, with user feedback, we found that most people had a hard time finding the current city phone number. So that's also right up top, first thing you see. So if you need to call the city, it's right there. Some of the other revamps, so below this, on the current layout, we're a little kind of limited on what we can do. At the end of the day, the city site is a 3-column design, so we've got our left, middle, and right sections. The current design is very limited, what we can do space-wise in the middle section. So the update kind of removes those restrictions. So anything basically below in the middle and left or right columns now, excuse me, are pretty much open for grabs. We can change, do whatever we want, put stuff around. It's very flexible. The other thing, it's also more content that we can edit. So on the current site, over here, you have your news items, your events, everything. It takes up some space that really doesn't need to be taken up. So we moved that to the bottom left over there and compacted them. So before those were separate columns, now they're all in one. So, and then I'm sure Carl will be happy at the rec center. We've also made the rec center more prominent. So not only do you have the city or the rec center logo, but you also have, you know, some links that can be changed depending on what's going on. So events and things, we can update all that immediately. So in a nutshell, those are kind of the updates on the front page. I don't know if there's any questions on that portion of.
I've got a couple, and then I think we'll turn it over to Mr. Gearbaugh.
Sure.
The image at the top, which is currently the Saline Celtic Festival,
Right.
is that going to be? You said it's going to scroll from left to right.
Correct.
Is that going to be more announcements or more images?
So that the main section above it will be images, and then the content will be on the right. So the text will be there,
Okay.
and those will be updated frequently. So we can change them and do whatever. So these are just kind of templates to use. So you know, the Celtic Festival is coming up. That would be a title image you put right up there, so everybody sees it. But you know, so snow removal's coming up. We could put that up there. It can be changed to whatever needs to be.
And this is a very small thing, but it's a trigger for me.
Okay.
My dear friend Wendy Weller, the proprietor of Weller's Banquet Facility, we've had that picture of the red building up since the website was redesigned in 2009. That building hasn't been red like a barn since 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to see an updated picture
Right.
of the Weller's facility specifically. I think that's great to focus more on announcements and disseminating information as opposed to
Right.
exclusively images. And I think this is great, Chris. I think our website was sort of in desperate need of a little bit of a facelift.
Sure.
The one thing that this is more a comment for council members, but when you go to government, when you go to boards and commissions, I would encourage you all to periodically look at the board and commission pages that you are at least somewhat responsible for as a council liaison, because I want to make sure that the information on there is timely and accurate. And so if you see issues, mistakes, there's information that you want to include, make sure you contact City Manager Campbell and Mr. Schank, because I think it's important that the information we convey on those pages be accurate and timely. So, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Well, I'm kind of hoping at some point we do an even bigger redesign, because I know this is a few fixes, but I've always had a concern with this page being so crowded with so much information. And even just today, we had a concern about an individual not being able to find council minutes and agendas. And I see we have minute on demand. I think some of our problem is terminology, because it's not necessarily the same lexicon that people are used to, and you know, to us that use it, we understand it, but we need to be a little more clear in our communications as to what we're doing. And especially, you know, in this case, you're looking all at government, and that's true government, but we're trying to do a lot on one page that needs to be a little less. I think we have to have more quick links and some of those other type of things that are a little more productive. I think this is a good start, and I know we have our quick links, but somehow this has got to be simplified more so in the future. The other piece, does this address any of our speed in terms of the response time?
It does, yeah, and that's one downside to the flash images now. That's kind of a heavy content, they call it, so it takes a while to load. It kind of lags. So yeah, this will fix that.
I mean, this is a start, but again, I would like to see us looking at investing a little more, one that's user-friendly, especially for paying bills and when individuals want to do searches and such, because even when you're going to look for the search engine itself doesn't seem to work as well as I think it should. And I'm not sure if if it's using Google or what it's using, because if you throw something in there, you may not pull up the item that you really want as easily as you can through Google. So our search box, I'm not sure how that one's working, but we may need to look at how that engine will
Okay.
be
Yeah, and that's
upgraded.
something we can correct too. Right now, it's a custom Google search, but yeah, we can
Yeah,
look
okay.
at updating it.
Let me stick on that point for just a moment. Would any council members, and I can't imagine they would, but would anybody have any objections if Chris and some of the other staff members continued to analyze and evaluate our page in the goal of condensing it further, meaning having less things to click on and making it just a little bit more simple for users? I would assume there's no objections. No objections?
The objection.
Okay. Please articulate it.
Well, I agree with Mr. Gearbaugh on minutes on demand. If that simply said something like minutes and agendas
Sure.
or something like that. And I also agree where it says online tax and assessment. There could be more online services, so just limiting it to that, you might want to change that phrase. But I think there is value to having it the way it is here and having a lot of content on one page rather than narrowing it down and making people have to jump to another page. So I'm not in the same, my opinion is different from Mr. Gearbaugh's. I like this.
Okay. Mr. Rhodes?
I'd like to request that during this redesign of the website, that an opportunity be given for people who are not familiar with the website to evaluate how it's laid out and where things are.
Okay.
Because, you know, folks who use this all the time kind of know where to go to find things. An example is 2 weeks ago, I was trying to find a volunteer application form for a resident who wanted to volunteer for one of our commissions. And I almost gave up before I came across it. It wasn't at all where I thought it would have been.
Okay, sure, and that's one of the constant kind of battles we fight is the user experience, where where you don't look at it every day and, okay, how would you go about doing it? So absolutely, I think that's something we need to keep evaluating.
Washtenaw County has the phrase online services, and so does the state of Michigan. And when you go to it, it gives you about 200 things you can do online. That form would have been part of that. So if we had something more generic rather than just online tax and assessment, and all online stuff at one glance, people could pick through it.
Okay.
I think that might help. But I also agree that somebody else looking at it rather than us, because we're so familiar with it, I think that was a very good, I agree with that.
Anything else? Okay. Chris, you want to continue?
Okay, so that, like I said, that's the main page update. The second update, here's another kind of image of it, whoops, is, like I said earlier, the mobile piece of it. So right now, mobile traffic on the city site has really kind of taken off within this last year. Mobile meaning cell phones, tablets. What you're kind of seeing is a trend of either huge screens or small screens. So the home desktop screens have gotten huge, and then everyone's got these little phones now. So it makes it a little more difficult to kind of develop the content for. So this would be the responsive website, they call it, meaning that any device that hits the website will be custom laid out for that device. So if it's a cell phone, this is how it would kind of look. You're going to see at the top, it's very compact. And this, I apologize, is the previous layout, kind of with the top logo images, but the new layout is similar. We'll scroll at the top, and then it'll stack the content. So it's not going to be scrolling. You're not going to be pinching and zooming on a little phone. It'll go just a vertical scroll to make it a little bit easier for each user to go kind of up and down for that portion. And then if I can show you what it looks like in action too. The City of Ann Arbor recently launched their responsive site. So in real time, if I grab the left here and you shrink down, you see how the website automatically formats. So on the smallest screen, you can still get to it. And then on a bigger one, it's going to automatically fill in content. So ours would basically do a similar effect. So it's
Questions?
No, I like this, and that's kind of the example where I was saying, even like with Ann Arbor's, where there's less information and it's easier to go. Is it possible to put some more links in the actual calendar where if somebody clicks on the calendar and goes down into the agendas, it goes down into that date and there's a meeting that it links to the agenda within it? And I think that'll be another solution to help us.
right. Yeah, and that's
Okay.
also coming. That I didn't mention that in the first slide. So before the current site, the calendars there, but you can't really do much with it, like you're mentioning. There's not the new site also supports a better calendar system, and it's much more
Great.
efficient like that.
Great.
So that's there as well.
Anything else, Mr. Shank?
Nope, I think that's
Okay.
it in a nutshell, unless there's any questions.
Well, since there was no objection, and since it seemed unanimous that, that Mr., or Councilmember Rhodes' idea had merit, I guess one of the things that I would ask is maybe to engage a few people who aren't as familiar with the website, to navigate it, to review it, to solicit some feedback, and then maybe come back and report to us, and maybe some changes will be forthcoming.
Okay.
Mr. Roth?
I was wondering what the timeline might be.
Depending, I'd like to have it up in a month, the month timeframe to get everything worked out, make sure the bugs are worked out. You know, we've got some kind of ADA concerns and things that I really want to test things before we kick it live. So I think a month's probably a safe kind of window on, you know, the green light to the finish.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note, Design Hub, who designed this website for us, we'll be working with them, so it'll be determined as far as timeline when we get it up and running and that type of thing, as far as having whether they do a focus group or something to you know, have someone look at it that doesn't normally look at trying to navigate our website. You may recall, when we did build this back in 8 or 9, we did try and build in some redundancies because, you know, if we all, and yet there's a couple examples that were given this evening about trying to find different things, and probably out of the folks up on the dais, if we all tried to go and find something, there'd be several we'd all think of a different way, potentially a different way a route that we should find it. So of course that's always the challenge, right? To determine what route is somebody going to think about, what's the right method or the pathway to get to whatever you're trying to reach. So so we'll continue to work on that, and as Chris said, it's just an ongoing challenge.
Mr. Gearba, please. Then Mr. Rhodes.
Just curious, what kind of regular funds do we have in our budget for website redevelopment and update? Or is this like a one at a time type of approach that we're taking?
Yeah, this will actually, you may recall, we had the Innovation Fund last year at about $20,000. This year was approved at about $5,000. We will be utilizing, it'll come, actually, at the end of the day, it's going to come out of the Innovations Fund, but we're going to have to do some budget amendments from some current lines that are a little bit heavy in some areas to do that. So we have started to, for a couple years ago, we started to look at replacing staff members' equipment, for example, like their desktops or a laptop, that type of thing, so we can keep, because I'm trying to think, last year the ones we replaced were 6 years old, 7 years old.
Yeah, they were getting up there.
So, you know, from a technology standpoint, that's tremendously old, that's ancient. But so it's a little more than a piece at a time, but it's certainly not where I know Chris would like it to be, or maybe where we need it to be. But it is, I think it is managed or manageable.
Yeah, I was just hoping that there's a sufficient additional support for staffing, doing the updates and things like that, because I know that's the biggest issue, and usually there's where the problem comes in, is when you're the tech guy, you're doing everything, and you don't have time to sit down and do all the updating and so forth. So when we look at our budget, I would like to talk about not just doing this as a piecemeal thing, but to actually have some additional funds to make sure that this is always maintained, because I think this really is the first source of information as it grows.
Certainly.
It's a good idea. Have something on an annual basis as opposed to a flash in the pan. Mr. Burgoyne.
Just one more comment. As you come onto the city website, there has been a hesitation right now.
Right.
And if this is getting rid of that hesitation, that's a really good thing.
Right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rhodes.
That's okay. Different but somewhat related question for our city manager. And it's, what's the status of our rebranding effort, and whatever that logo and tagline is that going to show up on our website?
Good question. I don't have an exact answer. We're actually meeting this week? The 19th. So next week, the group is getting back together. The CTAP group, the grant through the chamber, had met a few weeks ago and determined, for the most part, the logo to be used, or the logos, the different pieces of it. And now we'll be meeting next week to take, I believe, the next step and finalize some of those items to move forward. So, but yes, that would be my hope, that we would, at some point in the very near future, be able to put that up there.
Is that an item that will come to city council for approval or review or anything before it becomes official?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. The group is the group, right? I mean, it's the community-wide, this is a community-wide branding effort.
Right.
So it'll be up to, I mean, it won't be up to the city council whether or not the community does it, but certainly whether or not the city as an organization wants to proceed and utilize it in various ways, whether it be on the website or on our letterhead or whatever it might be.
Okay, I'll look forward to that.
Can you make sure to update us in an upcoming weekly communique? Okay, very good. Mr. Roth and then Mr. Burgoyne, and then I want to try and wrap this one up here, folks.
I would definitely want to have our official logo be part of the website. If we have branding as addition, I have no problem with it, but I think it's very important that we maintain our official city logo, because that has been going on for years. Lots of thought went into it, and that's really what we are. Branding is something in addition that we want to have branding as a community effort. It's just not the city of Saline. Right now, it appears to be the city of Saline's only one that appears to be using the branding logo, and I'd like to see others use it so it becomes the universal thing for the city, I mean for the whole area.
Thank you. Mr. Burgoyne?
I'm not sure if I'm repeating the same thing, because my interest is in the city seal, and in terms of government and government presence and history, the city seal, I think, is part of that. And I would not want to put that to the rear or lose that.
I don't think anybody would advocate that. I think we're all in agreement on that point. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Chase, if you want to raise the screen. Okay, it was properly moved by Tahar, seconded by Burgoyne, to acknowledge receipt of the November 4th, 2014 memo from Technology Support Coordinator Schonk, and to approve the front page web updates by Design Hub in an amount not to exceed $2,585. Is there any subsequent discussion? No, then all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Motion B will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the November 4th, 2014 memo from Technology Support Coordinator Schonk, and to approve or not to approve the mobile responsive updates by Design Hub in an amount not to exceed $6,800.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Gearba. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 14-222. This is ordinance number 758, rezoning of 555 Mills Road, Houghton School property. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the October 29th, 2014 memo from Assistant City Clerk DeHaan, and to approve or not to approve ordinance number 758, an ordinance to change the zoning of 555 Mills of the City of Saline according to the recorded plat thereof from R1A, single-family residential, to R1C, single-family residential.
Motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Burgoyne. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Roth. Again, Mr. Rubel is not here this evening, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Campbell if you'd like to make a comment.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the property owners, Saline Area Schools, of course, are here for comments or questions as well. You may recall the former Houghton School site being proposed for residential redevelopment. It's compatible with the master plan. It's able to accommodate allowable uses with the new zoning designation, and its allowable uses are compatible with the neighboring properties as well. So it meets all of those criteria. As far as historically, it was actually part of an original plat prior to the construction of the former Houghton School facility It was the plat across the street to the east. It was part of that plat, and obviously it was not ever developed in a residential because a school was built on it. So it's not too different than from what was actually originally platted for a few decades ago.
Are there any questions for city staff? Mr. Rhodes.
One comment, one question. On page 3, we have the proposed, I guess that's a preliminary site plan at the top. And I'm glad to see that the new drive is only 30 feet wide instead of 60. That's less impervious structure that we have to deal with. And then that's a comment. And then the question was, there's open space that's showing on Bennett Street. And I was just wondering why that is, because on the surface, it looks like there could be another 4 residences built on that location.
Do you care to comment? We do have two parties, or 2 individuals representing the owner, the property owner, Saline Area School Superintendent Scott Graydon and the School Board President Dave Holden. We appreciate you both being here.
Yeah,
Do you
just
want to comment on that?
can speak to that just slightly. Again, the preliminary site plan is a conceptual design that was submitted to us to give us a rough idea of approximately how many home sites would be allowable there. I think the conversation with the developer that we've been speaking to indicated there was a potential detention, water detention issue there. They wanted to create some space for that. But we certainly are open to other designs, and I'm not convinced yet that that would be the exact design that will come forward if this were to be approved.
I know that it's fairly often that we require some open space within developments, but I think if that's the reason, or one of the reasons for that, that ought to be waived since the entire Mill Pond Park is adjacent to this structure. And I, for one, would like to see the maximum number of homes built on that site that could reasonably be accommodated, not only because it will bring potentially more students to the school, but it will also bring more property tax revenue to the city.
Thank you. Mr. Gearbaugh?
I was just going to comment on that. That was the same concern that all planning had because of looking at one plan versus the other and trying to figure out exactly what's happening. The other concern was the road width because most of them are concerned that, and one of my concerns was potentially pushing all the parking onto other subdivisions and other streets. So when we looked at this plan, it hasn't been completely done for the site plan and how it will be laid out. So that will be coming back to planning to be able to figure those all out. Because even issues with sidewalk and other placements and stuff just don't seem to match up well on this preliminary thing. And so that concern is being addressed at planning's level.
Mr. Burgoyne?
In compact areas, sometimes you do find narrower street width, and in some, I assume these will be built to city specs so that the city accepts the street. But I have seen in other communities where you don't necessarily have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and what that does is that allows for more room between the street and the sidewalk so that tree roots don't destroy the sidewalks. The other thing it does is it allows the street to be a little bit wider so that you can have on-street parking. So I think in a subdivision like this, I don't always see the necessity for having narrow strips where you put trees between the road and the sidewalk on both sides of the street, because you're just asking for trouble. The tree roots will generally destroy the sidewalks. I think I would like to see more flexibility.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Graydon, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I would just like to remind
Please.
council that this Friday at 7 o'clock, we do have a large football game I expect to see everyone at.
We have a strategic framing, or strategic framework retreat, regrettably, on a Friday evening.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reschedule.
We're dedicated.
Yeah, you're welcome to show up. Yeah.
Is it going to be streaming video this time or no?
No, MHSA does not allow us to live stream.
Appreciate you being here, Mr. Graydon, and President Holden, we appreciate your time as well. If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Burgoyne, seconded by Roth, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 14-223. This is Rentschler Farm Big Barn Roof. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the November 5th, 2014 memo from DPW Director Fordyce and to approve or not to approve a contract with Sheriff Goslin Company in the amount of $24,649 to re-roof the front half of the big barn at Rentschler Farm, to be fully funded by proceeds of an insurance claim, and to authorize the mayor to sign the contract upon review and approval by the city attorney.
Motion to acknowledge receipt and to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Burgoyne. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Rhodes. Again, Mr. Fordyce is not here, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Campbell for comment and then open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Fordyce's memo states, as a result of the September 5th, 2014 storm that came through, there was damage to that part of the roof, causing leaking, of course, and then I was the leaking down onto the floor, and so just it kind of exacerbates the problems. But this is originally we had staff had talked about possibly having to use the emergency procedures as far as for timeliness, but because the contractor couldn't guarantee that they'll be able to do it yet this season, then we thought that it was proper to obviously to bring it to council for consideration. But again, because of the storm, it is covered by insurance, and it will cover the cost of the repair, the full repair, and then also they would, if awarded, they would do patchwork up top that would get through the winter to keep from any continued damaging of the floor inside.
Any questions? No questions? How about comments? You want to do a comment?
Sure, I'll do a comment.
Shoot.
Yeah. I would like to thank Mr. Fordyce and city staff for moving quickly on this thing once it was brought to their attention. You know, that big barn is in fact a big barn, and it's a very significant structure on this city-owned property that's operated by a historic society as a museum. I did have one question though, and that is there's a $500 deductible on our insurance claim, and who is liable for that?
The city. That'll come out of the maintenance fund.
Okay.
for the Rentschler Farm.
For the Rentschler Farm. Okay.
Any other comments? I would just note that Doug Elfring, the new president of the Saline Area Historical Society, showed me the problems with the existing roof. I believe about a month and a half ago at harvest time at Rentschler Farm, and clearly something needs to be done. And I would echo the sentiments of Councilmember Rhodes, which are that I too appreciate staff working so quickly and diligently to come up with a solution, and I thank you for that, and I enthusiastically endorse this motion. So if there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Burgoyne, seconded by Rhodes, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. This next motion has a bit of a typo. Instead of Rubel, it should be Skull. And this is new business item 14-224. This is contractor payment request number 8 for wastewater treatment plant rehab project. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the October 17th, 2014 memo from City Superintendent Engineer Rubel, and to approve or not to approve pay request number 8 in the amount of $27,273 as submitted.
Move to approve.
You want to acknowledge receipt as well?
Yes.
Thank
certainly.
you. It's been moved to acknowledge receipt and to approve by Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Burgoyne. Mr. Skull, do you care to make a comment, sir?
I don't.
Well, we'll find out. Are there any questions? Oh, you're on the hook. Mr. Roth.
How many more payments are coming forth to us?
I believe there's going to be one more.
And what might that amount be?
Well, we're still negotiating that right now, but do you have any idea? 68,000?
Yeah, I don't know. We're still waiting for proper information, support information. So that's been one that's been dragging along. But we're hopeful. We did meet with the contractor here a couple weeks ago, and we're hopeful that we'll hear from him this week.
And is the project finished?
It is. Phase 1 is finished. Phase 2 and Phase 3 are going to start in the springtime.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Gearbox?
And so we don't have another issue like we did with the DPW center. How are we guaranteeing that every single inspection, every policy that's covering any kind of insurance issues or damage is being checked off on this? Do we have a checklist or something? I don't want to see a repeat of what we had because of knowing what issues we've had with this
Well, we have
contract.
warranties on all the equipment. We didn't have any major structural work done except on the digester, and that was, I don't see where that would,
But I'm wondering, are all the warranties signed off, everything's approved, everything's reviewed? Because the last time we've had trouble with, like I don't want to have another Davenport Brothers fiasco. So I want to make sure on projects that are this large that all of that information has been checked and double-checked.
I will review all that before the final payment.
Okay, because that will be my holdup on approving any additional payments after this one.
Mr. Campo can also comment on that. It's a good point, Mr. Gearbox.
Yeah, we certainly will bring that as part of the final payment. We'll bring that and make sure that you're all comfortable with that as well. So we'll make sure that the staff provides that to you all.
Yeah, especially on this one because of the concerns that we had, and especially with the release of the sewage and everything else. I want to make sure that we're covered on every aspect of this project.
Absolutely.
Mr. Roth?
You have on here, it says it includes a retainer, $64,000 plus. Can you explain what this retainer is all about?
Well, geez, I have to apologize. I'm just filling in for Gary. I'm not really sure on the exact details on this. I was hoping that question didn't come up.
That's 5% of the
It's-
project.
Right.
It's usually they
That's
retain
a
just to make sure
normal.
the work gets done. And then
Typical.
But it's been done, correct?
Right, but we're not closed out on everything yet. We still have one more change order to go.
Right, that's the order that's the last payment that we referenced.
Yeah.
So that's why the 5% total retainage is still there.
Well, we would get a refund back, you think?
We haven't
You
paid
said the
it.
cost is gonna be about 8,000. We have retainer for 64. I'm gonna say 65,000.
No, I'm not sure where
What happens?
I'm not sure where the 8,000 number came in, but it's going to be greater than 8,000. But the 64,000 is there. It's not. We're not going to get it. We haven't paid that. That is part of the figure. That's there if we needed it. If it would,
We owe it to them.
Yeah. Any other questions? Mr. Skull or city staff? Bob, thank you.
Yeah.
If there's no further discussion, it's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Burgoyne to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Of course, this next item, you'll note, we discussed at a work session at our previous meeting. It's new business item 14-225, community event waiver of fees. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the November 4th, 2014 memo from City Clerk Royal and to approve or not to approve the community events estimated fees to be waived of $11,970 for DPW services, $11,420 for police services, for a total of $23,390.
Move to approve.
Can you acknowledge as well?
Acknowledge receipt.
Thank
Move
you
to
kindly.
approve.
It's been moved by Rhodes to acknowledge receipt and to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Again, we discussed this 2-3 weeks ago, but we're happy to entertain any questions or comments you might have. Mr. Roth?
I have a concern that it's including the community fair parade. So I'm not sure if we all agreed that that was a part of it or not. Not sure we had the consensus. So this is, we're agreeing, when we approve this, are we approving that fair parade?
Essentially, we would be, but you may recall a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, there is the possibility that that may not actually happen.
Correct, but I just didn't want to, I didn't want, by approving this, automatically saying we're going to do the fair parade, because I didn't think we gave it appropriate discussion.
Oh, okay. Well, if people wanted to see that particular item removed, the majority will rule. I'm in favor of keeping that in. I don't know what the consensus of other members are. Mr. Rhodes, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I also think we should leave that in there. As I stated at our work meeting, the Saline Community Fair is representative of our agricultural heritage, and it's important to us. to support that organization as much as I think any of the other organizations that we have. And including this amount in there does not guarantee that that will be expended. It is there as an option if they decide that they want to have a parade, and then that parade request would have to come back to us for specific approval anyway. So we have a second shot at it.
What is the consensus of the rest of council? Mayor Pro Tem Tahar?
Yes, I agree. I think we should keep it in here and leave the Fair Board's option open to make the choice whether or not they want to
Mr.
try.
Burgoyne, you agree with that?
Same.
Okay. Ms. Seibel Koenig?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gearbaugh, would you care to comment?
Yeah, knowing that it's not guaranteed at this point, that's the only reason I'll support it tonight.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Roth, do you care to make any additional comments?
Well, I just have a question.
Please.
Mr. Rhodes concluded saying that it'll come back to us again. Is that correct?
Well, anything that's going to be, of course, this is correct. I mean, this is a new process, of course, but yes, I would suggest that anything that needs to come back and utilize the rights of way would need to get official permission, just like we typically you'll see with conditions such as, receiving permission from traffic engineer, if MDOT approval is required, those types of things. We will make sure when we respond back to these folks that if right-of-way is required or anything else that they will have to submit that for official approval. And maybe that's something that as we go forward with this next year, maybe we refine that a little bit more. And if that's what council would like to do, when we do this, one time every year, so we could refine it, so they would have to get that approval the same time next year as we are right now, if you will. But so we all know what those any issues that may be, or we could continue on like we're going to do right now, in that we will let folks know, for instance, for the parades, that they will have to submit a request so we can go do the official review and give the council give their official permission for that parade route, for instance.
So it will come back to the council?
Yes.
Yes, it will.
Then I'm in favor of keeping it in.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Burgoyne?
I'm in favor of approving the waiver now, and even if they need a parade route, I would not want to bring the waiver up again. I think once you do your annual costs, you just leave them that way. I'm not in favor of reviewing them and changing them and changing them.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the waiver wouldn't come up again, just approval of the public right-of-ways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a parade route or that type of thing.
Okay, just to be clear.
Yep.
All right.
No, it's a good point. Is there anything further? No? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar.
Yes, thank you. Just a comment. I think that going through this process and having the summary of all of the events and all of the costs is really useful and puts a kind of a mysterious, we've always done it this way, process into real perspective and is really helpful for understanding the big picture. So I appreciate the clerk's work on all of this.
Great, thank you very much. If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We move on now to new business item 14-226. This is PSAP Memorandum of Understanding. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the October 23rd, 2014 memo from Police Chief Rennick and to approve or not to approve the final draft of the Memorandum of Understanding for Washtenaw County Public Safety Answering Points and to authorize or not authorize the City Clerk and Police Chief to sign the document on behalf of the City of Saline.
Move to acknowledge receipt and approve and authorize.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Seibel Koenig. Chief Rennick, do you care to make any comments, sir?
Real quickly, this is really just putting what we've been practicing over the last several years into writing. This document has really been floating around for the last 2 or 3 years, from attorney to attorney to attorney, from municipality to municipality. Finally, they've whittled it down to its final format. I submitted it to our city attorney, and he had no problem with the clerk and I signing this. What this really does for us is if our PSAP ever goes down, we can utilize another PSAP at no cost. If another person's PSAP goes down, they can come to us, and we don't charge them for our services. In the event of something very catastrophic where our PSAP or another PSAP would be knocked out completely, there are extra stations at the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department where our dispatchers could go over there, flick a couple of buttons, and dispatch from there if need be. This is just putting it down in writing for us to direct us on how to do that. It specifies that there's a small time period for a 2-hour. If maybe the phone lines would go down, that's a level 1. If they go down for longer, then it would be a level 2. Nothing really changes other than it's specified in the agreement what a level 1 and a level 2 is.
Good. We'll start with Councilmember Rhodes and then move on to Mr. Roth.
Would you explain for the audience and those watching on television what PSAP is?
Sure. It's a public safety answering point. It's our dispatch center where the 911 calls come in. There's 7 or 8 of them within the county. Saline has its own PSAP, and if in fact something would happen to that where we couldn't dispatch from here, we could go somewhere else, click a couple of buttons, and it could be answered someplace else, or vice versa if it happened to someplace else.
And this memorandum of understanding certainly to me seems like a very appropriate thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rhodes. Mr. Roth.
Mr. Rhodes had my exact same question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for the chief? Oh, you have a question for the chief?
Oh, actually, just a comment. Actually, we just did this a month ago or less when the 911 line did not go down, but our non-emergency line went down, and we were able to redirect to Pittsfield Township, and they helped us out for that day or two, right?
Yeah, a couple of days, actually, yes. And they had already signed this agreement. As a matter of fact, just about everybody in the county has signed it.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Additional comments or discussion?
Just a quick question.
Please.
Who's coordinating this, the county, or just the, I just didn't realize, is the county coordinating this, or is it just all the communities together?
It came from the county. Dave Alderman is the one who actually put it in the final draft, but it's gone through, like I said, every municipality's attorney, including the U of M, which apparently the U of M attorneys really batted it up a lot. And in its final form, the issue became, when the municipalities passed this, everybody has to pass the same one. And so once all the attorneys were happy, they put it in a final format, and that's why you're getting it now. And part of the reason is there was a miscommunication that our city attorney hadn't looked at it, so he quickly looked at it, said it's okay.
But it is the county that eventually is going to, if any issues come up or arise, or however disputes, who actually deals with this?
Well, the dispute would be, first of all, it can be canceled within 30 days. If for some reason there's an issue with it, within 30 days, city council could say we're no longer interested in doing this, and it stops. If we find something inappropriate going on, we can refuse to participate in something like that.
Okay.
So it's really administered by each municipality.
That's what it's self-administered?
Yes.
So, okay, got it. Thanks. That's what I wanted to know.
Any additional comments? Okay, then it's been properly moved by Rhodes, seconded by Seibel Koenig to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Last but certainly not least on the new business portion of the agenda this evening is the Parks and Rec grant request. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the October 28th, 2014 memo from Parks and Rec Director Scruggs, and to approve or not to approve the request to apply for a National Gardening Association Youth Gardening Grant and the National Gardening Association Mantis Tiller Award.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Gearba. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Director Scruggs, do you care to make any comment this evening?
It's pretty self-explanatory, but I did want to say that these came through the eCivis program that we subscribe to, and I've been checking them periodically. And these two grants, they kind of coincide together. They're for the same purpose, but there is no matching funds for the city, so it's essentially a free grant for us.
Great. Any questions for Director Scruggs? Mr. Rhodes?
The last paragraph of your memo, it mentions planted a garden in 2 raised bed spaces, and then you would like to expand that gardening program?
Correct.
Where are those raised beds now?
They are just south of the tennis courts.
Is that a Heisman pose?
Yeah, exactly. No, they're near the tennis courts on the sidewalk as you walk past the pool area. As you approach the tennis courts, they're on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And they're the raised beds that you actually helped us figure out. You got the plans for us, and I believe the Kiwanis Club is the one that sponsored them originally.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Director Scruggs, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We have 3 discussion items this evening. The first is commission, committee, task force reports from council members. No? It's easy enough. How about reports or other announcements? Mr. Gearboss, then followed by Mr. Rhodes.
Just real quick, I wanted to give a little appreciation to our DPW who has been working on the windmill at the depot, which was taken down a few weeks ago, if anybody's noticed it, and they're trying to repair it and have discovered a few 100 years has done a little more work on it than and a little damage, so it'll be back up and hopefully the next few months or so and by the spring. But again, they're doing a great job looking at it and hopefully saving us a lot of cost and repairs for the Historical Society. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rhodes?
I wanted to restate the crowdfunding presentation, which is tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock at Mangiamo's on the 2nd floor. There'll be a speaker, Rob Ferrari from Michigan Municipal League, and Rachel Kanan from Unity Vibrations out of Ypsilanti, and an opportunity for question and answer. And I realize that some of us will also be going to the, or will instead be going to the Saline Area Social Services Leadership Summit, which is also an important factor here within our community. But I think that this crowdfunding is an opportunity for us to expand the number of businesses that we have in the city and for the existing businesses to expand, and hopefully the end result of that will be less demand on social services for their resources. The second thing I wanted to mention was the Saline Community Fair is hosting a community forum on Wednesday, November 19th, starting at 7 o'clock at Liberty School. And this is a request for community residents to come forth and talk with the fair board about what they like or don't like about the fair, the way it's been structured, and to provide input on things that they could perhaps do differently. The fair board, as are many organizations, are struggling with declining revenues and increasing costs. And this is a group of very hardworking people who really need more input from the citizens. And attending the forum does not obligate you to do anything else in any way. Just come and listen to them and provide information that evening. And they'll probably have some light refreshments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Any additional announcements? Mr. Seibel-Koenig.
Just from the Chamber of Commerce, the applications for entries to the Christmas parade were due today, but we'll probably take a late one. And we are at Bush's through the month of November selling raffle tickets in support of the parade and the children's activities, including Treasure Trails to Santa. And we provide gift bags for the kids when they come and visit Santa that day. So support the Christmas activities by buying a raffle ticket.
Wonderful, thank you kindly. Any other announcements? Okay, well then real quick, the final item is downtown parking. In your packets was a memorandum from Chief Rennick dated Tuesday, November 4th, pertaining to downtown parking. I just wanted to give everyone one more stab at this before it comes back at our next council meeting for action. Again, what's being proposed is a change in signage, a change in the posted hours for parking throughout most of the downtown, expanding that by 1 hour, and then also that we would begin enforcement. And again, if there's consensus to move forward, this would come back as an action item at, I believe, our next meeting. Okay. Mr. Burgoyne?
Yeah, I had 3 questions.
Please. Chief Rennick, you want to come up? Whenever you're ready, Mr. Burgoyne.
Okay, well, the first question is restricting parking on McKay Street between Hall Street and 75 feet east of Hall Street. And I do know that people do park there. And I'm wondering what the issue is with people parking there.
Well, actually, it's just an expansion of the restricted parking that's already there. There's a no parking from here to corner. And what was happening is when trucks are turning into Quantum Signal, they can't make the turn. As a matter of fact, they went over the curb and did a lot of damage to the grassy area just before the sidewalk. And in looking at it with Mr. Fordyce, we went down there, we measured, and just by moving it about 25 or 30 feet further east, we're able to eliminate that and allow trucks to be able to pull into his driveway without causing damage.
Okay, so that eliminates basically a couple of parking spots.
One, maybe 1.5 at the most, that's correct, yes.
Do you have any subsequent questions, Mr. Burgoyne?
Yes. Also, on the 4-hour signage, in the ordinance, it says unless otherwise, unless there's some other rule otherwise. But on the signs, it doesn't say that. It just says 4 hours. So I'm wondering, what are the other rules otherwise?
Well, the signage is going to say that it's the 4-hour time limit, but there are, in parking lots number 4.
I think it's 4.
2 and 4.
Yeah, I have the TCOs further in the back here. Yes, 2 and 4. There's other signs in there that allow all-day parking.
Oh, at certain spots?
In certain spots, yes.
Okay.
And so I wanted to get, in the traffic controller that I'm putting out, to let people know that if in fact they park in one of those other spots, they're not limited to the 4 hours.
Okay, in the traffic control order. All
Yes.
right. And my third question was for parking that can go beyond 24 hours, or actually in those designated spots. I know that there are 3 of them for Comerica. There were a few for the PAS building. I'm wondering how many of those in other, how many do we have that are allowed to park there more than 4 hours? Do we know?
Extras, you mean the spots that are signed differently?
Yes.
Well, it's all along the fence behind Benny's. I think there's like 6 spots there.
Okay.
And I believe there's 5 or 6 along the building just east of the arch.
You're right, plus there's 2 or 3 for Comerica near the dumpster.
Yes.
And are there some behind the Chamber of Commerce?
Those are private, that's a private, that's not city-owned. That little carve-out?
Where the chamber employees park.
Yes.
Correct.
That's
Oh.
private property.
That's not municipally owned.
It's not
Right,
included in the lot.
that little spot. But are there others beyond there?
No, not in that lot.
Not in that lot.
Right.
Okay.
And that question did come up, and that's why that doesn't appear in the TCO, because that is a private parking lot, and we can't enforce that, of course.
Sure.
Anything else, Mr. Burgoyne?
No?
No? Anything else from the rest of council? Assuming everyone's comfortable then with this, with moving forward and having this appear on the next agenda as an action item?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yep, please, and then I'm going to grab Mr. Gearbox, because I think he has his hands up as well.
Right, the ordinance says that you'll be allowed to give multiple tickets in the same day. So I'm wondering, is that, do you give one ticket after 4 hours and another ticket after 8 hours? Is that the point of that, or why multiple tickets?
Well, the multiple tickets was put in there to stop a person from leaving their car parked there beyond, they could leave it there 48 hours then, and if you can't give multiple tickets, and you could only ticket it once.
Oh, I see, could be another day.
It could be, sure.
Okay.
But if I may.
Please.
That was from, I can't remember exactly, that was one of the suggestions during some of the various discussions that we've had.
Mr. Gearbox, I'm sorry.
No, I like the idea of the parking permit aspect, but is there a duration on that, or is it as long as it's either 1 and 2 weeks and you just can continue to come back in and renew?
I believe the intent would be that that they couldn't do it in perpetuity. But that's why the week or 2 weeks at a time.
Okay, that's my question, that's clarification, because I was thinking of people that live downtown or something like that.
Right. We don't want
Want to be, maybe wanting to park in some of our 24-hour parking lots the entire time, and as long as we're receiving sufficient income, I think that would be okay.
Well, we're cautious in that we don't want it to become a storage.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that that was the intent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Burgoyne?
In terms of administration of those permits, it seems as though there are a couple of locations, one of them being behind Key Bank on McKay Street. That parking lot is never fully used. And then the other spot is south of Henry Street near the water tower. Often that parking lot is not fully used. And if in fact you allow people to have permits and to keep their cars there for days or whatever, I would not want it to be too near the businesses. It would be better to do it in locations that are not in heavy use.
That's what it says in here.
Yeah.
Is that what it says?
Which page are you referring to?
It's next, the page just before the map.
In the TCO.
Yeah.
States that lots 3 and 5 will be able to be used with permits, the rest can't.
Right, there will be no permits allowed in the other lots, just 3 and 5.
Okay, so 3 and 5, 5 is the one behind Key Bank?
I get the numbers
Correct.
mixed
The
up.
one on McKay is 5.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
The one in McKay is 5, and the one south of Henry Street
It's
was
3.
There's 3.
3.
Oh,
Those are the only two
And what's
lots
the
that
one
permits
near,
would be allowed.
Max? Is that 2?
That's 2.
That's 2.
Right.
Yeah. You're gonna get us so confused, we'll turn cross-eyed here.
I really like the new proposed signage, though,
Yes.
for the
Yes.
parking lots, and that may help us remember the numbers also.
That credit goes to Director Fordyce, by the way. I had nothing to do with the signs. I'd like to take credit, it's not mine.
Any other questions, comments?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this will come back as an action item next Monday. I would ask, we have two of our friends from the press corps here, if you'd make sure to help us disseminate this information. Obviously, as you know, we've been working on this issue for many, many months now. But if people have thoughts, questions, concerns, obviously they're welcome to attend next Monday's meeting or to contact any of us in advance. Okay?
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week for sure. All right, if there's nothing further, we move on to our final public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? There are no citizen comments. Is there any other business to come before Saline City Council this evening? No, we have our kickoff meeting this Friday with our facilitator to talk about our community vision at 6:30 to 9:30 at the Saline District Library, the Brecken Room. I just want to note that we will not be providing food, so you're welcome to bring food, or I would encourage you to eat in advance. Again, we'll start promptly at 6:30, and we'll include everyone on council if you're able to make it, and I would strongly encourage you to attend, as well as department heads. Am I correct, Mr. Campbell?
That's correct.
Okay. And then we have a meeting a week from today with a 6 p.m. Work meeting to discuss the Monroe Street property and to hear from the Executive Committee of the Saline Celtic Festival. They're going to do a wrap-up of the 2014 Celtic Festival. Regular meeting at 7:30. Looks like now we're going to have a work meeting that begins at 6 p.m. on the 1st because we want to add bonding for our pension liability. And then a regular meeting at 7:30, and then the big town hall, for lack of a better way to articulate it, where the community will be strongly encouraged to attend and participate, will be on the 3rd from 6 p.m. to 9 at the Liberty School cafeteria. There are no absences this evening, so we will dispense with that. And at this time, unless there's anything further to be brought up, I would seek a motion to adjourn at 9:53 p.m.
So moved.
Was that Mayor Pro Tem Tahar?
Yes, it was.
8:53?
8:53, excuse me.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is it 8:53? How about that? Okay. Need my night. Are you the second, Mr. Gearbox?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you kindly. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:53 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. This meeting's adjourned.